There are moments in life when pain does not come as a punishment, but as a mirror. You find yourself drawn again and again to the same kind of person, the same wound, the same ache, as if the universe were conspiring to make you bleed in familiar ways. And yet, what if this is not cruelty? What if it is intelligence, a hidden design written within your psyche, a message from the parts of yourself you have not yet met? Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Fate, that invisible gravity pulling you toward what hurts, toward what humbles, toward what you swore you would never face again. Every pattern is a messenger. Every heartbreak is a summons. Every pain that repeats is not a circle. It's a spiral, drawing you closer to the core of your own unfinished understanding. You see, the shadow, that quiet, invisible twin who walks behind you, does not rest when ignored. It waits. It speaks through attraction, through conflict, through the magnetic pull of suffering that you mistake for bad luck. But it is not bad luck, it is you. The person who wounds you often embodies the very qualities you repress. Their cruelty mirrors your silence. Their manipulation echoes your need to control what feels unsafe. Their rejection awakens the forgotten corners of your own self-rejection. This is not a moral story. It is a psychological one. The shadow does not speak in the language of morality. It speaks in symbols, in emotion, in repetition. Every time you say, "Why does this always happen to me?" the shadow answers, "Because you have not yet listened." The truth is, you attract what hurts you because it reflects what is still unloved within you. Your soul, longing for wholeness, calls forth the same wound again and again until you learn to touch it with awareness instead of fear. This is the strange mercy of suffering. It is not trying to destroy you, it is trying to show you yourself. Somewhere in the ache, beneath the weight of all the things you wish were different, there is an invitation to stop running, to stop fixing, to stop blaming, and to finally see, to see the shadow, not as an enemy, but as a doorway back home. That is where the healing begins. That is where faith turns into freedom. The question is no longer, why do I attract what hurts me? The question is, what in me still needs to be seen? The human mind has an extraordinary ability to hide from itself. We wear masks so convincing that even we forget who lies beneath them. We chase light, chase love, chase success. And in doing so, we build our identity upon everything that keeps us from seeing the truth. We say we want peace, but what we often want is distraction. We say we want healing, but what we often want is escape. The modern soul is addicted to avoidance. We scroll, we achieve, we perform, anything to stay above the surface, because to go deeper feels like drowning. We call it positivity, but often it is repression dressed in bright colors. We silence anger with spiritual slogans. We bury grief under affirmations. We avoid conflict in the name of being calm. And all the while, the shadow watches, silent, patient, waiting to be remembered. You cannot outshine what you refuse to face. The light that denies the dark is not light, it is blindness. In our denial, we create an inner war. A war between who we show and who we are. Between the smiling self that seeks approval and the silent self that screams for honesty. This disconnection is the true source of suffering. We call it anxiety, we call it burnout, we call it heartbreak, but underneath every symptom lies the same truth. You have abandoned parts of yourself in order to survive. Think of the child who was told not to cry. They learn that sadness is weakness, so they grow into an adult who smiles while breaking, who says, "I am fine," while their heart trembles. Think of the dreamer who was told to be realistic. They bury their fire under logic and one day wonder why life feels gray and hollow. Think of the one who was told that anger is dangerous. They suppress it until it turns inward, until their body aches, their relationships falter, and they mistake self-erasure for kindness. Repression is not peace. It is a slow, invisible form of self-destruction. And yet, it is not our fault. We learn to hide to be loved. We learn to please to feel safe. We learn to silence ourselves because once the truth was too heavy to carry. But now, the cost of that silence has become unbearable. The mask no longer fits. The persona, that carefully crafted image we show the world, cracks under the weight of what we've ignored. And in those cracks something stirs. a whisper, ancient and familiar. You are not what you pretend to be. That voice unsettles us, because it threatens the illusion of control. We built our entire lives around being good, strong, successful. But the shadow asks us to be real, to feel what we've buried, to meet the chaos within without judgment, to admit, I am capable of cruelty, I am capable of envy, I am capable of deceit, and yet I am also capable of love beyond comprehension. That is the paradox. We cannot have one without the other. The light of the soul shines only when it learns to embrace its own darkness. But before that revelation arrives, there is resistance, there is pain, there is a terrifying moment when we look into the mirror and no longer recognize the reflection staring back. It is in that moment, when everything false begins to fall away, that the soul begins to tremble with truth. You think you are breaking down, but in truth, you are breaking open. This is the threshold, the edge between the person you pretend to be and the person you were meant to become. What comes next is the revelation that changes everything. The moment of revelation rarely arrives as thunder. It comes as a silence, a quiet knowing that what you've been running from is not a monster, but a mirror. You begin to see that your patterns are not accidents. They are pathways, that what you've been calling toxic in others is often the unlived part of yourself begging to be acknowledged. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the totality of the human being that the conscious mind refuses to accept. It is everything we exile, our rage, our envy, our shame, our hunger for power, for love, for recognition, and the more we repress these aspects, the more life finds ways to show them to us through others. We attract what we have not yet integrated, not because the universe is cruel, but because the soul is merciful. Your shadow does not want to punish you, it wants to be seen, and so it places in front of you the faces, the conflicts, the betrayals that mirror back the unhealed truth. You meet the liar who reminds you of your own dishonesty. You meet the manipulator who exposes your hidden need to control. You meet the emotionally unavailable partner who reflects the part of you afraid of true intimacy. Each encounter feels like an injury, but it is in fact a revelation. The world is the stage on which your unconscious performs. The outer world is the projection screen of the inner one. What you condemn in others, you conceal in yourself. What you forgive in yourself, you begin to love in others. To awaken is to reclaim these projections. To say, this is mine too. Not as self-blame, but as self-integration. Jung wrote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The shadow is not evil, it is potential. Within your anger lies your voice. Within your envy lies your unlived ambition. Or for within your fear lies your forgotten power. When you run from your darkness, you also run from your depth. The purpose of suffering is not to destroy your peace. It is to destroy your pretense, to strip away the false light so the real light can emerge. Look back on your life, the heartbreaks that shattered you, the betrayals that left you raw, the loneliness that felt endless. Each one carved you open, each one revealed a truth you could not see in comfort. Pain, when faced consciously, becomes wisdom. Wounds, when touched with awareness, become teachers. Darkness, when met with love, becomes light. The shadow is not a force to be conquered. It is a child to be embraced, a neglected self waiting at the threshold, asking to come home. And when you turn toward it, something extraordinary happens. The battle ends. Not because the darkness disappears, but because you no longer fear it. In that moment, you understand, healing is not becoming soft. It is becoming whole. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means the union of opposites. The acceptance that you are both saint and sinner, creator and destroyer, light and night intertwined. The light without the dark is sterile. The dark without the light is chaos. But together they form the sacred harmony that gives the soul its true strength. You are not meant to transcend your humanity. You are meant to inhabit it fully. When you embrace what you once rejected, you stop attracting what hurts you, because the lesson has been learned. The energy that once cried for recognition no longer needs to scream through suffering. Integration is liberation, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of understanding. To look into the mirror of the shadow and say, yes, this too is me, is to reclaim your freedom. And that is the revelation. The very darkness you feared was the doorway to your own light. Once you have seen the shadow, you cannot unsee it. The illusion of innocence, the idea that the darkness belongs only to others, crumbles, and in its place stands a new kind of clarity. You begin to understand that growth is not about becoming pure but becoming honest. Integration begins with awareness, but it unfolds through courage. It is one thing to recognize your shadow. It is another to live with it consciously, to invite it to the table instead of chaining it in the basement. So how do we do this? How do we live in harmony with what we once denied? The first step is humility, to look at yourself without judgment, to see the pettiness, the jealousy, the manipulation, and not rush to condemn it. Because what you judge, you banish, and what you banish returns in disguise. Humility allows us to see our darkness not as sin, but as information, a message about what remains unhealed. Anger is not evil, it is unmet truth. Envy is not corruption, it is misdirected desire. Fear is not weakness, it is the guardian of the unknown. When you begin to listen instead of suppress, you become your own healer. The shadow stops shouting through chaos and begins to whisper through its intuition. The second step is awareness in relationship. Every person you meet is a reflection of your unconscious. They reveal to you where you are still asleep. When someone triggers you, pause before reacting. Ask, what is this revealing in me? Is it my need for control, my fear of rejection, my hunger for validation? Every reaction is a mirror. To live consciously is to turn that mirror inward. In time, you begin to see patterns. Where you once saw enemies, you begin to understand that people do not hurt you. They show you where you are still vulnerable. And that realization does not make you passive. It makes you powerful. Because once you stop seeing life as something happening to you, you begin to see it as something happening for you. The third step is courage. Courage to enter the silence where the shadow lives. Courage to stop performing for love. Courage to feel what you have numbed. Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And yet, this is the task, to accept, not excuse, not glorify, but simply to stand before your own contradictions and remain. It means saying, I am capable of light and cruelty, I am capable of compassion and indifference, and both truths exist within me. This kind of acceptance does not weaken you, it makes you real, and reality is sacred. You stop chasing perfection because you understand that the purpose of life was never to be flawless, it was to be whole. When you integrate your shadow, your relationships change. You no longer demand others to complete you. You no longer attract pain disguised as love. You no longer confuse intensity with intimacy, because you have met the one relationship that matters most, the one with yourself. The shadow no longer has to play out through conflict and projection, because it has been given a voice. Your pain becomes a guide, your emotions become teachers, your solitude becomes a sanctuary. This is not a one-time awakening. Integration is a lifelong dialogue. The shadow evolves as you do. Each new level of consciousness reveals a deeper layer of truth. But with each encounter, the fear lessens, the shame softens, and what remains is authenticity, the quiet strength of someone who no longer hides. When you embrace your darkness, you stop needing to control how the world sees you. You speak with calm authority. You act without needing approval. You love without losing yourself. This is true freedom, not the escape from life, but the ability to meet it fully, to walk into chaos without collapsing, to hold both light and shadow in the same breath, to look at your reflection and whisper, I am not perfect, I am not broken, I am whole. That is transformation, not through violence, not through denial, but through truth. And in that truth, the darkness that once hunted you becomes the ally that guides you home. There comes a quiet moment after the storm, when you stop trying to fix yourself and you simply sit with what is. No struggle, no resistance, just breath and being. You look back at all the versions of yourself, the one who chased love, the one who feared loneliness, the one who blamed the world for their pain. And instead of shame, you feel gratitude, because you finally understand. Every wound was a guide, every heartbreak a teacher, every failure a mirror that pointed you inward. You were never being punished, You were being prepared. The pain that once felt senseless was shaping the vessel of your awareness. The losses that once shattered you were clearing space for truth to live. You realize now that healing is not the removal of pain. It is the remembrance of wholeness. There was never a broken you, only a forgotten you, a self buried beneath masks and expectations. When you reclaim that self, life begins to breathe differently. You no longer chase meaning, you embody it. You no longer demand love, you become it. The world does not need you to be perfect, it needs you to be present. The peace you sought was never hiding in the light. It was waiting in the dark, in the places you refused to look, in the emotions you were taught to fear. When you finally turn toward them with compassion, they dissolve like shadows at dawn. You see that the darkness was never the enemy. It was light in disguise. Carl Jung's philosophy reminds us that life's purpose is not to escape suffering, but to understand it. To see that your pain and your potential are two sides of the same mirror. You attract what hurts you until you no longer need the lesson it carries. And then, quietly, effortlessly, the pattern ends, because the part of you that once cried out for healing has finally been heard. From that stillness, a new kind of strength is born. Not the strength of control, but the strength of surrender. You move through the world with calm eyes, because you have faced what others run from. And this time, when you look in the mirror, you do not search for flaws. You see a human being, tender, flawed, infinite. You smile, because you know now, everything you once resisted was guiding you home to this moment. The shadow is no longer behind you. It walks beside you, not as an adversary, but as an ally. You have not become soft, you have become whole. And in that wholeness, you understand that light and darkness were never enemies. They were lovers, forever dancing within the same heart. The night was never meant to disappear. It was meant to teach you how to see. Long pause, a breath, a faint echo. So when pain knocks again, welcome it. When the mirror of life shows you what still aches, look closely. Because every reflection, no matter how dark, is an invitation to remember who you are. You are not your wounds. You are the light that sees them. And that is the reason you attract what hurts you. Not to suffer endlessly, but to awaken, to return, to become whole.